Why retirement feels much emptier than most people expected. Have you ever looked around at your life in retirement and quietly wondered, why does this feel so much emptier than I thought it would? Not harder, exactly. Not busier, just emptier. That thought can be difficult to admit, especially after spending so many years believing retirement would feel like relief. For a long time, retirement is presented as a reward, a well-earned season of rest, a time to finally slow down, breathe, and enjoy life after decades of responsibility. And for many people, that is exactly what they expect. More peace, more freedom, less pressure, more time for themselves. But when retirement finally arrives, many people discover something no one really prepared them for. The problem is not having less to do. The problem is feeling less connected to life itself. Because for most of your adult life, work was never just about income. It was never only about the job title or the paycheck or the routine. Work gave shape to your days. It gave you a reason to get up in the morning. It gave you places to be, people to talk to, problems to solve, and a role to step into. Even when it was stressful, tiring, or repetitive, it still gave you something deeply human, a sense that your presence mattered somewhere. Maybe you were a teacher, and students looked to you for guidance. Maybe you were a nurse, a mechanic, a manager, a driver, a business owner, a secretary, an electrician, a provider, a caregiver, or the one person everyone could count on when something needed to be handled. Day after day, year after year, life kept asking something of you. And whether anyone said it out loud or not, you knew you had a place in the world. Then one day, that chapter ended. And what many people are not ready for is this. When work ends, it is not only the job that disappears. Sometimes what disappears with it is structure, identity, usefulness, and the quiet comfort of being needed. That is why retirement can feel so confusing. On the outside, it may look like freedom, but on the inside, it can feel like being removed from the flow of life. The mornings become longer, the afternoons become quieter, the weekends no longer feel different from the weekdays. The phone rings less, the casual conversations disappear. Fewer people need your opinion. Fewer people wait for you. Fewer people notice whether you showed up or not. And that kind of silence can be much heavier than most people expect. What hurts is not always the loss of work itself. Very often, what hurts most is the loss of meaning that work once carried. Many retirees say they miss their job, but what they're really missing is the feeling of being needed. They miss having somewhere to go. They miss being recognized for what they could do. They miss the rhythm of responsibility. They miss hearing their names spoken in a context where they mattered. There's a sentence many people in retirement feel but rarely say out loud. I don't know who I am anymore when no one really needs me the way they used to. That's a painful sentence, and it's painful because it touches something much deeper than boredom. It touches identity. For decades, many people knew exactly who they were in the world. They were the one who worked hard, the one who provided, the one who helped, the one who fixed things, the one who carried others. Even when life was exhausting, that role gave them a sense of dignity. It reminded them that they still had value. So when retirement takes that role away, it can leave behind a kind of quiet grief. And that's an important word here, grief. Because retirement is often treated as if it should only be celebrated. People say, enjoy this time, you earned it, now you can do whatever you want. But almost no one talks about the loss that can come with it. No one talks about the fact that retirement can feel like mourning a version of yourself that no longer has a clear place to stand. There's no funeral for that, no sympathy card, no simple script for how to move through it. But the grief is real all the same. It's the grief of no longer being part of the daily motion of the world. The grief of watching life become quieter while everyone else seems to keep rushing ahead. The grief of realizing that what you thought would feel peaceful sometimes feels lonely instead.
the grief of having time, but not always having someone to share that time with. That part can be especially hard, because freedom sounds beautiful until it arrives in a house that feels too quiet. You finally have time, but your children may be busy with lives of their own. Your grandchildren may love you, but they're growing up in a fast world that moves differently. Old friends may be farther away, less mobile, struggling with health, or simply harder to reach than they used to be. A spouse may be gone, neighbors may have changed, communities may not feel the way they once did. So what was supposed to feel like freedom can begin to feel like a wide open space with no one in it. And that can create another kind of pain many people don't like admitting: shame. Because if retirement is supposed to be a reward, then feeling sad in retirement can make people feel guilty. They begin to wonder, what is wrong with me? Why am I not happier? Why am I struggling now that I finally have time? Some even feel embarrassed by their own emptiness, as if they should be more grateful, more cheerful, more fulfilled. But feeling empty in retirement doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you're weak, and it certainly doesn't mean you're failing at this stage of life. It means something important ended, and endings, even expected ones, still have to be felt. For many people, retirement also removes the noise that used to distract them from deeper emotions. When life was busy, there was less room to notice the loneliness, the disappointments, the distance in a marriage, the sadness of aging, the fear of being left behind, the fear of becoming irrelevant, or the quiet ache of wondering whether the world still has a place for them. Work covered some of that. Routine covered some of that. Responsibility covered some of that. Retirement uncovers it. And when the outside becomes quiet, the inside often becomes louder. That can be unsettling, but it can also be honest. Because maybe what you miss is not stress. Maybe it's not deadlines. Maybe it's not even the work itself. Maybe what you miss is the feeling that your life was woven into something larger. Maybe what you miss is having a role that made your presence visible. Maybe what you miss is waking up with a clear reason to step into the day. If that's true for you, then your emptiness makes sense, and it deserves compassion, not judgment. The truth is, human beings were not built only to rest. We were built to matter. We were built to care, to give, to contribute, to belong. So when retirement removes one of the biggest structures that once delivered those things, of course there is a void. Of course there is confusion. Of course there are mornings when the day feels too long before it has even begun. But that's not where the story has to end. Because even though the old role may be gone, your value is not gone with it. The world may no longer ask for your labor in the same way. It may no longer call on your profession, your schedule, or your old responsibilities. But that doesn't mean there is nothing left for you to give. It only means that meaning may need to be found in a different form now. Not always in big accomplishments, not always in titles, not always in productivity, sometimes in presence, sometimes in wisdom, sometimes in steadiness, sometimes in simply showing up for one person in a way that still matters deeply. Meaning in this stage of life often returns quietly. It may return through a weekly phone call that someone comes to depend on, through a grandchild who needs your patience more than your perfection, through a neighbor who feels less alone because you take time to ask how they are doing, through volunteering, through church, through community, through sharing stories that preserve something important, through mentoring someone younger, through being the calm, grounded person in a world that has become too rushed to listen well. These things may seem small compared to a lifetime career, but small is not the same as meaningless. In fact, many of the most meaningful parts of life are small. A conversation, a visit, a remembered name, a hand on the shoulder, a kind word at the right moment, a life that still makes other lives feel a little less heavy. And perhaps that's worth remembering when retirement feels empty. Meaning doesn't always return as excitement. Sometimes it returns as quiet usefulness. Sometimes it returns as connection. Sometimes it returns as knowing that even now, your presence still brings something valuable into the lives of others. You don't have to become who you used to be. You don't have to pretend you don't miss the old life. You don't have to smile through sadness that is real. But you also don't have to believe that because one role ended, your meaningful life ended with it. It did not. This chapter may ask something different from you. It may ask for a slower kind of purpose, a gentler kind of relevance, a deeper kind of belonging, one that is built on being busy all the time, but on being present in ways that still matter. And if you're in that place right now, wondering why retirement feels so much emptier than most people expected, let this be said clearly. You are not alone. You are not strange. You are not weak. And you are not the only one who has felt the ache of no longer being needed in the same way. What you are feeling is real, but it is not the end of your meaning. There is still life here. There is still purpose here. There is still a place for your wisdom, your warmth, your memory, your care, and your presence.
And even if that purpose looks different now, it can still be deeply, quietly beautiful.